In my opinion, there are two angles from which you can choose the right cloud provider. Either you are a business or employee and want to decide what cloud provider offers the best services at the best price for your business, project, or you want to get a job in the field and don't know what technologies you should learn. In this video, I will compare the three biggest cloud providers, AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure, to see which is the best suited for your application and what are their differences. Also, sorry for the interruption, but if you like the video or you are interested in seeing more content like this, please consider liking and subscribing. This tells me that you like those videos and that I should create more of them. As I have mentioned in the intro, you can look at those from two perspectives. You're either a business employee or maybe you're currently working on some project and you want to see what platform offers the right services for you. And maybe you want just to see which one is the cheapest. Or, on the other hand, maybe you want to get a job in the industry and don't know which platform is more popular or which one you should learn. I will go into both perspectives, but let's start with the first one. If you're currently building some app, working on a project, or deciding what is the best for your business, there are multiple factors you need to consider. Those are pricing, capabilities, basically the services that AWS, Google Cloud, or Microsoft Azure offer, and the documentation and platform popularity. Let's look at the pricing. It again depends on what services you're planning to use, but in most areas, from my experience, AWS will be the cheapest when it comes to computing and storage. Again, there are just too many factors to say that in every situation. For example, if you just need pure storage, AWS will be the cheapest. But if you are transferring a lot of data from one place to another, there will be additional cost for that. And that's something that will change your pricing and that you will need to consider. If your requirements are not that high, AWS offers a free tier which you can use for small applications to test out concepts and develop things on the go. Google Cloud at the moment also offers a free credit. I think it's $200 for 1 year for new accounts, but this changes constantly and I'm not sure if this is still valid or working, but the last time I checked it was still there. Azure also offers some type of policies of 12 months free access to some services, but this changes over the time. My personal experience is that in most cases, AWS will be the cheapest option. When it comes to services and capabilities, all three platforms offer more or less the same type of services. AWS again leads in most new and emerging categories like VR, edge computing, NLP, and so on. But as of now, all platforms are somewhere in the same area. But one thing I noticed about Google Cloud is that they significantly stand out in services based on machine learning and AI. All three cloud providers offer services like speech to text, text to speech, natural language processing, and so on. But Google Cloud offers much better results in that than the three other platforms, which is actually quite understandable since their core business evolves around that. I mean, they're Google, right? I have used the Google Natural Language API for some projects and the results there were outstanding and in 90% of cases better than the competitors. So again, by the sheer number of services on all three platforms, it again really depends. But from my experience, when it comes to AI and machine learning, Google Cloud offers the best services. But all cloud providers should offer the same type of services. In really rare cases will you see that just one provider has something that others don't have, even though they are trying really hard to convince you that just their service providers provides certain capabilities that the others don't provide. One very important aspect is documentation and courses. All three major cloud providers have courses and documentations on their websites, but AWS is by far leading in this category. There is just an abundance of courses everywhere, from YouTube to Udemy to the official AWS website, on pretty much any topic. Google Cloud comes in second. There is also still a lot of documentation, but significantly less. And Microsoft Azure comes last in this category. This is a very important factor, since you will find yourself stuck in specific problems that just don't have a solution without speaking to support or finding someone with the same problem in a forum. The problem is that even though they are all similar, they still have some small differences in how certain things are done. And if the problems are a bit more specific, you won't find any answers on Stack Overflow or anywhere on the web. And if therefore there is a lack of documentation or you can't find a similar problem in some forums, you're basically completely stuck there on your own. That's another problem if you're using a lot of out-of-the-box solutions. You will find yourself very often in those positions that something very simple and obvious is just not possible to change. For example, running a Lambda function on AWS for longer than 5 minutes is just not possible. It is limited to 5 minutes and then the function restarts. It sounds like a very simple thing, but if some process in your system takes longer, you will need to build everything around that specific limitation. That's in general the problem if you are using their simple out-of-the-box solutions. Most of the time, you save time in the beginning, but then you run into some problems which there just doesn't exist any solution, or you are stuck with some specific bugs or errors where you just can't find any help online. You're pretty much screwed and you will need to start all over again. Therefore, always check documentation thoroughly and check all limitations and possibilities of that current service at the beginning so you don't run into those types of problems. Now, let's go to the second perspective. On the other hand, if you are searching for a job or want to add one of those cloud platforms to your CV, you should look at this from a different perspective. In my personal experience, most companies focus on just one cloud provider. One of those reasons is, as I explained earlier, they all try to lock you down in using only their system. So it becomes very hard to move away from that. Let's say you have a Node.js app running inside a Docker container. You can deploy that to any server you want. If you, for example, set up a system where you're using AWS API Gateway and Lambda functions, you will save time in the beginning, but you will lock yourself up in using their system and their specific way of doing things. And if you want to change something on the way or add some features, you will find yourself stuck in there. If you want to change some little thing like the way how you authenticate your users, you will find out that that's pretty much impossible. You will need to completely change your app around that limitation. One other reason companies decide to go with only specific cloud providers are some higher benefits on a corporate level. If a large company is using one platform throughout the entire company, their costs are pretty much large and run into the millions. So you can think that there is probably some management decisions and corporate decisions going on to decide which platform should be used. And since all those three major companies have salespeople and sales agencies all around the world, you can pretty much assume that they are trying to convince every company as hard as they can to use their service. So in the end, it comes much more down to the sales and how strongly represented one of those companies in a certain location is than actually the benefits they provide. Don't understand me wrong, of course, their benefits and possibilities are also very important, but at the end of the day, sales makes for the most decisions. So what I have noticed is that it really depends on the location where you are. If you are in Europe, I noticed that most companies are using Azure, even for tasks that are much better suited with AWS. But Azure pays some benefits to those companies, like they get some services for free and so on, so they mostly go with them. One exception for that is Germany. I have worked with a lot of German companies and noticed that actually they tend to use AWS in 90% of cases. And generally all over the world, I think that AWS is much more represented. If you compare those three, AWS has the highest market share, followed by Azure, and then followed by Google, which I think has just around 6% market share. So if you are starting out, I would recommend using AWS since there is a lot of documentation on it, and I think it's the maybe easiest way to get into it, from my opinion. But you can start with pretty much any of those. And if you really want to work in a place where they are using something else, you can always learn it. It's not that hard. Like if you already are pretty profound with AWS, it's not going to be that hard for you to switch, for example, for Azure or Google Cloud. They are all pretty much similar. They have some little things that work differently, but if you have the understanding of one, you will pretty much be guaranteed to learn the other one in a short amount of time. This brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this video and you like this type of content. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also check out my newsletter down in the description or wait a few seconds to see it on the screen. And till the next time.